axons of those neurons together. And it takes it all the way up to enter the brain. Once the olfactory bulb brings it back to the brain, right? So you got two olfactory bulbs, and they track it back towards the brain. It projects to the primary olfactory cortex. And remember when we learned about the cerebrum, the part of the brain responsible for smell was the temporal lobe. And then also other parts of your brain like your hypothalamus, your amygdala, and other parts also are involved in smell. But smell is very unique in that it doesn't have to go to the relay station or the thalamus before you perceive it, the smell. So, when you're smelling something, you sniff repeatedly or you breathe deeply. I know, I can't wait to, I love the smell of rain. I take it in deeply to really get that full smell. So when that happens, your mucus binds the proteins and the sensation begins. It's going to send that message. That first neuron sends it. And then the secondary neuron is going to conduct the message from the receptor to the cerebral cortex. At the cerebral cortex, in the temporal lobe, you identify the smell. Okay, that's the brain. Identify it. The hypothalamus gives a reaction to the smell. Oh, I like it. I like that smell. Or maybe it's, I don't like that smell. The amygdala also has smell recognition. Oh, that's what it is. But it also gives the emotional reaction to smell. Like I like to give the example of the perfume. When my husband and I first started dating, I wore a specific type of perfume. And now if I wear it again, now and then, he will smell me. Hey, that's the perfume that you wore when we first started dating. He has an emotional reaction, I think it's a good one, to the smell from the amygdala when he smells that. So that's smell. Smell is very closely linked to taste. When we talk about taste, it's called gustation. So gustatory cells are chemoreceptors within the taste buds, on the tongue, in the back of the throat, different areas for taste. So when we think of taste, we mostly think of the tongue. So where the taste buds are located on the tongue are called the papillae, which is a very fun word. And there's 4 different types of papillae, and 3 of them start with the letter F, so that's not confusing at all. The filiform are short and spiked, and they're all over the tongue, and they have nothing to do with taste. Filiform, nothing to do with taste. What they help do is manipulate the food. Move around. Fungiform, now it sounds like, well, the first part is fungi. They're mushroom-shaped. They are located on the tips and the side of the tongue. They have some taste buds in them. Valate make the flying V the back of your tongue. So go ahead and open your mouth. Take a picture if you want. Get a mirror. You can see the valate papillae at the back of your tongue. They contain most of the taste buds. Folate are on the back, the lateral sides, have some few taste buds, so on the posterior and lateral. And when we're talking about the taste buds, you really got to look at the picture. So here's our filiform, that's the spiky ones that help you manipulate food. The fungiform, mushroom, they're kind of in the anterior 2/3. The folate are on the sides, and the valate are on the flying V in the back. So the taste buds house the taste receptors. That's where we have the actual receptors that relay the information to the nervous system. The cells that detect the taste are called gustatory cells within that taste buds. Here in yellow, this light pink, that's the actual gustatory cell. This is the top of the taste bud. Within the taste bud, you have taste pores. And in that little divot down, you have the gustatory hairs that are waiting to receive the chemoreceptors, or the little molecules, and they bind and they whoop. They send that information on the gustatory cells. Now, this is cool. Gustatory cells only live from 7 to 9 days. So we've all done it. We've all burnt our tongue, and then you can't taste things, right? But eventually, you get that taste back because they only live for 7 to 9 days. Again, just like the respiratory epithelium, you have cells that support those gustatory, or those sensation receptor cells, and the basal cells are there to replace the gustatory cells. So, like I just said in the picture, the extensions of the gustatory cells are called the taste hairs. Kind of gross to think that you actually do have hairs on your tongue. Gross. And they're from the extension of the dendrites. And they're right at the tongue surface. So we, just like smell, you need to taste it and needs to dissolve in your saliva. So if you don't have enough saliva, you can't taste as well. And also, that's why when you're thinking about food, your brain will actually start secreting saliva. So the pathway, we're getting into that. I'm getting ahead of myself. The pathways of that information, that's the gustatory pathways. So all those different neurons in your tongue and in the back of your throat, you actually have taste buds, and in your epiglottis as well. They project that information to the medulla oblongata. Once the medulla oblongata receives that information, it then passes it to the relay station, the thalamus. The third neurons will then project the information from the thalamus to the cortex. The primary gustation area is in that really, really special fifth lobe of the brain that we didn't talk a lot about, called the insula. The 5 basic tastes that you can perceive: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. So what does that mean? Sweet, you're going to think of carbohydrates like sugars or artificial sweeteners. If I could spell, that would be good. Sugars. Hopefully you know how to spell that. Salt is ions, metal ions like salt, potassium. Sour, you think of acids like vinegar or lemon juice. Bitter is produced by a chemical called an alkaloid. Unsweetened chocolate is bitter. Can you think of anything else that would be bitter? I know when I think of it, I think of caffeine. Is that how you spell caffeine? No, maybe. And then the last taste is umami. It's a very savory taste. You think, like when you think of soul foods, like you think it has an umami sense. Now, that flavor, that savory, is due to glutamate. Those foods have MSG or glutamate in them. Okay, the information from taste. So we talked about the primary neuron gives the information to the medulla oblongata. When that information gets to the medulla oblongata, it really starts triggering salivation. So you get that first taste, maybe even that first smell triggers it. Your brain can start, your medulla can be activated by sight of food, smell of food, thinking about food, and you start secreting saliva. Your stomach starts secreting its juices, so that's when you get the gurgle or the pains, hunger. So that's good things, right? You want to eat that. It tastes good. But sometimes taste can elicit the opposite response, a nauseating trigger, make you want to gag, vomit. That would also be the medulla in the opposite way. Then it goes to the thalamus, it relays it to the cerebral cortex in the insula, right? And this is where we're conscious of that taste. Things that help you integrate or determine what you're tasting is temperature is involved. Texture of the food helps you figure out what it is, and then smell is strongly correlated with taste. If you block off that smell, it's harder to determine the taste of something. And you probably have all experienced that when you have a cold. And this just shows a pathway of what I just talked about. The primary neuron relays that information from the taste pores, the gustatory cells, to the medulla, from the medulla to the thalamus, and from the thalamus to primary gustatory area in the insula, where you consciously are aware of what you just tasted. Oh yes, this picture just shows that different cranial nerves are responsible for sending that information depending on what part of the tongue is activated. And that is the end of